people are really obsessed with certain channels or certain tactics. They're doing loads of marketing activity and they don't know the business impact of anything that they're doing. But if you have the right message, it doesn't matter that much where you're putting it. Nearly all of our new business comes from pushing our message out into the market with content. So that's millions of dollars of revenue over the last number of years.
So how would you go about building demand then?
So think of it in terms of a system or an engine. The first piece of the puzzle is we need a great strategy. And one of the big problems that people do is they say, right, I need to create some content, I need to run some ads. How are we going to get some leads? It's like, no, just focus on influencing people on the platform where they are. And if you do that well, then the leads and the demos and the revenue
It's like a natural
as a result. But yeah, this is one of the reasons I love it, is it's so scalable and efficient.
So if a company came to you, then what would be the process of you helping them to actually kind of input this section into them?
Yeah, I mean,
this is the Market Resonance podcast, sponsored by B2B, the growth show for everyday B2B companies. And I'm Phil Clare, and I'm joined here with David Ellis again, the founder of B2B, and he's also the person who made the Market Resonance framework, which we're going to talk a little bit more about today. We're going to focus on traffic and demand building. What do we mean by building demand?
Great question. Great to be here. So when we talk about traffic and demand building, this is often what people think of when they say the word marketing. So it's creating content, it's running ads, it's generating leads, it's tracking conversions, it's all that kind of marketing type stuff. And we're going to talk about exactly how to do it, what's working in 2026, which I think is important because this stuff changes all the time, and how to basically get your ideal customers coming to you and wanting to work with you.
Okay. So what do you reckon are the best channels at the moment for a B2B business specifically?
Yeah. I mean, is it worth just clarifying maybe what we mean by traffic or demand building?
Yeah, you can if you want. Yeah.
So the way to think about it is you're taking your product market fit hypothesis, which is what we've talked about. So it's your strategic narrative. You're taking that and you're pushing it out into the marketplace, and you're driving traffic to the growth assets that we were talking about in the last episode. So you've clarified what your strategic narrative is. You've created assets which articulate that strategic narrative. The problem is, if you don't go out and push that message in front of people, then no one's going to see it because no one's hanging out on your website, right? And so this is that next step where you take the message and you take it out into the marketplace. And in our system, in the Market Resonance framework, you stay in this phase until you're consistently generating leads for your business or your offer. So it's an exciting part of the process.
Okay. So probably the same question I've asked previously.
Yeah.
Where's the best place to do that, do you think, at the moment?
Yeah, look, so I think people are really obsessed with certain channels or certain tactics. As much as possible, I try and be platform agnostic, right? And so my key point would be, if you have the right message, it doesn't matter that much where you're putting it, right? You can be going to conferences, you can be on LinkedIn, you can be on Instagram, you can be on TikTok, you can be, doing smoke signals. Like if you've got the right message, it's gonna work and it will resonate with your target customer. And then it's just a conversation around, for your business specifically, where are your customers hanging out and which platforms suit your business better than others. For most B2B companies, and pretty much all of our partners are in the B2B space, for most B2B companies, it's going to be probably a combination of LinkedIn and Google. Those are still the primary channels for most B2B companies. But then there's no reason why this system wouldn't work on a platform like Instagram or TikTok or YouTube. I'm quite bullish about YouTube for B2B companies at the moment. So what we're going to give you today is a system that you should be able to operationalize and then use on whichever channel you're going to be using it.
You said just at the beginning, just there, you said that you stay in this phase until you're consistently getting kind of customers or getting some leads. That's the right word. Yeah. What happens if that doesn't? How do you get around that if you're not in that place of consistently generating those?
Right. Great question. So it's a case of when rather than if you get the leads.
Okay.
And that's because it's a framework. And basically what happens is, so we've got stage 1, 2, and 3. So stage 1 is the hypothesis. Stage 2 is the growth assets. Stage 3 is the traffic and demand building. So that's creating your hypothesis, creating the assets which articulate that hypothesis, and then taking your message out into the marketplace. If we've done this right, you will start over time. If you're consistent and you track the results, over time, you will start to generate leads. If you're consistent over a period of time and you're not generating leads, then there's something wrong with our hypothesis. Like that's been proven to be incorrect, the initial hypothesis. And so we need to go back to the hypothesis, adjust the growth assets if we need to, and then start the process of traffic and demand building again. And so you spin through that cycle until you find something that really works. And at all times, you're going to be measuring qualitative and quantitative metrics and data so that you can figure out what is and isn't resonating with your target customer. And so for some businesses, it will work first time. In other cases, you might have to do a couple of iterations before you find something that really, really works.
And I guess probably a lot of businesses get caught in the trap of just putting stuff out there, but they have no real foundation for whether they know whether someone is resonating with it or finding it interesting or not, because they're not measuring anything. What kind of things are you measuring?
So when it comes to measuring results, you're looking at two things primarily. You're looking at quantitative data, which is like leads, demos, new customers, revenue generated, et cetera, quantitative data. And then you're also looking at qualitative data points, which is, does it feel like what we're saying is resonating? And so what that often looks like in practice is people messaging you on LinkedIn, for example, and saying, oh, this content piece really resonated with me for XYZ reasons. Or they book to have a call with you, for example, and they are basically quoting back stuff to you that you've said, and they're telling you that it really resonated with them. So there's the quantitative side, which is more the sort of scientific side of what we're doing. And then there's more qualitative, like, does it feel like what we're saying is resonating? I mean, there are a lot of like specific metrics and data points that we can look at. Probably we shouldn't get into the weeds of that today necessarily. The key today, I think, is more talking about how to actually operationalize this and how to actually start pushing your message out into the marketplace on a consistent basis, because it is really important to be consistent with this process as well.
Okay, so how would you go about building demand then? How do you start that process?
So you need an engine. So don't expect to post once on LinkedIn and for it to start generating you results for your business. So you'll need to be able to do it on a consistent basis to really start seeing results. So think of it in terms of a system or an engine. So the first piece of the puzzle is we need a great strategy. Like we need to know what we're talking about and what our narrative is. Now that comes from the product market fit hypothesis. So if you're watching this today and you haven't seen that yet, go a couple of episodes back and check that out, because it all comes from, if you have the right narrative, then your content and your ads and your marketing is going to really start to work. So it starts with strategy. You then need efficient ways to capture that content or capture that narrative or capture that hypothesis. What we're doing today is we are capturing our hypothesis, because we have a hypothesis and a thesis around market resonance and that being the answer to grow your business. And we've set up, we've rented time in a recording studio and we're talking about it. And this will ultimately be edited and published on social media platforms like YouTube and LinkedIn. So that's capturing the strategy, capturing the narrative. There are lots of different ways to do that. You can have, and I recommend for most B2B companies doing it in a long form format.
Why is that?
Good question. So I think that it allows you to go deeper on subjects and into the topics of your area of expertise. And what I found a direct correlation with the more people are watching my long form content, the more customers we generate and the more money we make. Because basically it's more people who are starting to adopt my way of thinking, or more people who find my way of thinking interesting. And so the more people that there is, when they're ready to then grow their business, they're naturally going to come and speak to us about it, right? So I also like the idea of starting with the long form content. You can then repurpose that into shorter form clips and posts and all that kind of stuff. So you start at the top with the big thing, and then you can clip that up and post it in multiple different ways. So it needs to be a system. Otherwise, you're going to struggle. Like if you just go on LinkedIn this morning and think, what do I write about? It's going to be really hard to be consistent with that approach.
It probably is quite daunting as well, trying to think, what am I going to say? How am I going to say it? Oh, I've got to just record this random video. Like, it could become quite an onerous task, probably, couldn't it?
100%. Yeah. So you've got your product market fit hypothesis now. You know who you're speaking to and what you're saying to them. You then need a capture system where you can just consistently capture that content, right? So we're today choosing to do that in a podcast. You could have a Substack where you write long form blogs. You could have a YouTube channel where you talk to camera and you create, talking head style videos. It's just got to be something that you feel like you can be consistent with. We find a podcast tends to be the most effective way to do this with most B2B companies. They don't have to be in person. A lot of our clients and our partners, we run podcasts for them remotely, virtually. And it's literally just getting in a room with a thought leader and asking them questions, basically. And for someone that's not so comfortable creating content, that tends to be a good...
it's like a low-level entry, isn't it?
Low bar to entry. Exactly. That's exactly the phrase I was going to use. And you don't even have to use the whole podcast. You don't have to share the whole podcast. But then you've got, in theory, a long-form video if you want to share that. You've got short-form clips you can take from the long-form video that you can share if you want. And importantly, you've got a transcript. And you can use the transcript to, and obviously using our friend AI, Claude or ChatGPT or whatever tool you're using, you can use the transcript to then create posts for LinkedIn, write blog posts, etc., etc. And it's still your authentic thought because it's based on the transcript from the podcast. It's not going to Claude and saying, write me a LinkedIn post.
It's so interesting that just that way around. Like, that's probably what a lot of people do. They just like, write me a random post on X or Y, whereas this is the actual thoughts that in your head that you believe in your idea. And so it still is much more authentic when it comes to the AI use. Yeah.
We should talk about this because I think it's really important not to outsource your thought leadership to someone else. Most businesses, and again, we're talking primarily to B2B companies, typically they're expertise led. So they're a consultancy or a service provider, or even if they have a software product, the reason they built the software product is that they're experts in a particular space, right? And so there's naturally going to be one or two key thought leaders within your organization. One of our partners at the moment is a software development company, been around for more than 30 years. One of their taglines is they've been around longer than Google. So they really know what they're talking about, right? And they have an opinion on a lot of the stuff that's going on with AI and vibe coding and stuff in software development. And so there's a couple of people at who are directors in the organization who are fantastic thought leaders for the organization. Now, what often happens is if you outsource content creation to someone else, so let's say you don't want to do it because you're busy, you're the CEO of a company. You hire a marketing manager to create content for you, or you hire an agency to create content for you. It's going to lack that authenticity and that resonance that comes from your original authentic thought. And I think this is even more important today than it was 2 or 3 years ago because of AI and because it's so easy now to churn out content that feels like good content. People are just craving that authenticity. And so when you capture this content, this is the key part. You don't have to be involved in publishing it. You don't have to edit it, as a thought leader, but the thoughts should be coming from you, in my opinion, in order for it to really resonate.
I guess the issue with those people is that they're quite busy. So having like a system that is efficient is super important. You called it an engine, didn't you?
Yeah, I think there's two parts, right? So the one part, and I can relate to that. I'm the CEO of a company. There's quite a lot of other things I could spend my time on, but I've just realized how valuable it is for me to share my point of view with the world. Obviously, it helps us generate new customers. It helps us with retaining our existing customers. It helps with upsells and renewals. It helps with hiring. Having a brand helps you hire top talent. So there's so many different areas that it impacts. And so I've just firstly chosen to prioritize this. And I think if you're listening to this or watching this and you're this, thought leader within a company, have a think about if it's worth spending a few hours a month doing this. And then secondly, it is having a great system, right? Having a good system to capture that content so that you don't feel like you're on that hamster wheel. And I think the key as well is that is to continue to be authentic. Like one of the things I've been talking about quite a lot recently, which seems to resonate with people, is this idea of creating content without losing your soul. Because you don't want to feel like you're creating content for the sake of it. You don't want to feel like you're creating it for the algorithm. You're creating it from your original authentic thought, and it's designed to help your customers. And that's the key, I think, to longevity doing this.
Yeah, super interesting. What do you think are some of the classic mistakes that business owners make?
Yeah. At this stage, at the capture stage, it would be outsourcing it to someone else.
Yeah.
At the other stages, it would be different problems. After the capture, we talk about publishing it. So this is where you've now got that raw footage that we talked about. You're going to publish it on platforms. So again, you're going to repurpose that content as many times as possible. So this podcast today, we'll publish the whole podcast, which has got very minimal editing. We'll publish it on YouTube probably. There'll probably be several clips from this, like if one of us has a good idea, like if one of us says something intelligent at some point.
Yeah. It's not going to come from me.
If one of us says something good in the next hour, then that will be clipped up for use on LinkedIn, could also be put on TikTok, Instagram, wherever you want it to be. And we have the transcript, which will be used to write LinkedIn posts. If we wanted to, we could use it to write an email newsletter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the publishing stage. There's an additional step, which we probably won't talk about too much today, which is advertising. So, and what I mean by that is paid advertising on the platforms. So one step which we'll usually add to the process is you've published your content. You can take the top performing pieces of content and you can run ads to push them in front of your target customers. So what that allows us to do is basically skip the queue with the algorithm, because we can just guarantee the reach of our content and guarantee that all the right people are seeing it at the right times. And so that's, for most businesses, that's a natural next step. Once your organic content starts to work, it's kind of a no-brainer to start running ads to sort of force that content in front of the right people. So that's step 4. So we've got strategy, talk about the right things, have a good capture system, publish the content and repurpose it as many times as possible, advertise, and then measure. And this is where a lot of mistakes are made, to come back to your question, because either people are not measuring at all. Again, that's something that I see a lot, is like, we're posting content on LinkedIn, but we're not measuring the business impact of it. There's a company I spoke with not too long ago, actually, been around for 20 years or so. They're doing loads of marketing activity, different types of activity, and they don't know the business impact of anything that they're doing. They're just not tracking it. And so they're just kind of doing it for the sake of doing it. So measure, which is this 5th step, is super important. So we measure the content based on the business impact of the content. And this is the big mistake that people make, is either they don't measure it at all, or they measure it based on how the platform would like them to measure it and how a content creator would like to measure it.
What would those things be?
Which basically means, how many impressions is it getting?
Okay.
And how much engagement is it getting?
Classic.
Right? So
I actually do that as well.
So and that's not nothing, but it's not usually directly correlated to the business outcomes, right? So just to give you an example, I can post something on LinkedIn today that doesn't get a lot of impressions, but it might generate a bunch of leads for my business. Conversely, if I wanted to go viral on LinkedIn, I probably could. I'd probably just talk about politics or something. Have a hot take about the current prime minister or something like that. And that would go viral because it would get loads of engagement, but it's probably not going to generate me any customers for my business. And so tracking your content or your ads or whatever you're doing based on the impressions and engagement is certainly not the right way to go.
I can see why you're saying, like, you're pushing the long form element as well, because for many like B2B businesses, they're not, they're not maybe the most interesting thing, like a HR company or something. Someone's not going to be wanting to randomly consume that while they're doom scrolling. But if they are interested in finding a really good HR company, they are probably going to listen to a longer piece of
They will.
content.
I think that's really key.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, you will find your audience. So if you're the HR company, you'll find those people who care about running HR well in an organization.
And then they'll consume loads of your content.
Right. Like, my wife is a doctor, for example. She couldn't care less about business. Like, she's definitely not going to watch this. Right? But there are people who will watch this and they care about it and they'll find it interesting. And they might watch the whole episode end to end. Or they might just watch 10, 15 minutes. And that's still a lot. And I think that's really that's what you want to optimize for is consumption. Like, valuable. We talk about valuable actions on platform, which is people who are actually consuming your content. Because what I've learned over time is people are not going to convert and become a customer of your business because you've written your website really well. There's a step in the process, but it's a relatively small percentage. People are going to convert on the platforms that they're on. So they're on LinkedIn, they see something interesting from you, they watch 5 minutes of a video, and then next week they watch 10 minutes of the next video. And then before you know it, in 6 months' time, they've actually consumed hours and hours of your content, and they really understand how you think. And they come to your website when they're ready to convert.
Yeah, super interesting.
They're ready to take that next step. And so that's what I recommend people optimize for, is valuable actions and consumption on the platform. So lead generated, relevant people viewing your profile on LinkedIn, relevant people, like inbound DMs from people who want to learn more, obviously demos, customers, and all that kind of stuff. And I don't even really look at how many impressions our content is getting, to be honest with you.
And do you find that you have to put ads behind the content, or could it be done organically if someone doesn't have like a huge budget? Or
it can be done organically.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a slower process, is it?
It's slower, and over time, the way that all of these platforms work is, like, over time they become pay to play. So, for example, if you look at Google now, and this is the life cycle of every sort of marketing platform, is it starts organic, and you can get, if you jump in while it's still organic, you can build up a following very quickly without paying for ads. And then at a certain point, they introduce advertising.
Yeah.
And then if you look at a platform like Google now, the whole first page is just like ads.
Okay.
Like, if we search it now, it's going to be nearly all ads. And it's pretty hard to break through with organic. And so all platforms basically go that way over time. So Facebook is now going in that direction. LinkedIn, 5 years ago was relatively small compared to the other. I mean, it's still small compared to the other ones, but relatively easy to build a following on LinkedIn a number of years ago. Now it's more difficult, more competitive.
Okay.
But to answer your question, you can certainly see great results from just posting organic content. Yeah, if you're posting the right stuff, it's resonate with the right people, and then you're starting conversations with people and stuff, you can definitely see a good result.
Okay. Could you give us like a couple of examples maybe of companies that you've worked with that have really seen some success in this area? Like they were having an absolute nightmare before and they had a real turnaround moment.
Yeah.
What do they do?
What do the companies do, or what did they do?
What did they do to turn it around?
Yeah, I mean, there's honestly so many examples of this with partners that we've worked with. Same with our business as well, right? Nearly all of our new business comes from pushing our message out into the market with content, ads, stuff like that, mostly from LinkedIn, some YouTube, etc. So that's millions of dollars of revenue over the last number of years. Even yesterday, I had a conversation with one of our partners that had just built a new relationship with a really important strategic partner within their industry. And he said it came directly from content that they've created. And then they started a conversation. And I think the phrase he used was business defining relationship. Like this one partner could define their business for the next 5-10 years kind of thing.
And it was because he would watch the content.
Directly from content.
Interesting.
Another
It's just always there as well, isn't it? So you're not having to have a conversation with someone and then meet someone else in person the next week and like repeat that process.
Yeah.
Individually, someone can just
100%
listen to you in their own time, and
people can
watch and
exactly. Like people can get to know you at scale without you having to meet them all in person.
But it's still authentic.
Yes, I think so. And it allows people to go on that buying journey with you without you sort of forcing them through a buying journey, if that makes sense. Like you said, I really believe nowadays, and we've made some changes to our process recently, which probably not quite ready to talk about yet, but at a certain point we'll talk about it, of trying to just give all the power to the customer and just allow them to make the decision when they're ready, rather than trying to force them to become a lead today. And that's one of the big problems that people do is they say, right, I need to create some content, I need to run some ads. How are we going to get some leads? And it's like, no, just focus on influencing people on the platform where they are. And if you do that well, then the leads and the demos and the revenue will come naturally as a result. But yeah, this is one of the reasons I love it, is it's so scalable and efficient.
So if a company came to you, then what would be the process of you helping them to actually kind of input this section into their...
Right. We can do it for you, or we can do it with you. Basically, those are the two ways that we work with people at all stages of the framework, right? So either we can come in and create all of your content for you, or more commonly, we work with you and your team to help you and your team create the content yourselves. And then at a certain point, you'll know how to do it and you won't need us anymore.
Which of those ways do you think is the best?
It depends on your business, where you're at, depends on your budget. Obviously, you pay more to get us to do the whole thing. So if you have the budget for that and you want to move super quick, then that's what people go for. We call it growth partner. And then if you want to maybe move slightly slower, but adopt all the knowledge and information in-house and kind of build the capabilities in-house, you go for done with you, which at the moment we call growth accelerator. That's more common because it's also a more cost-effective price point, more accessible price point. So that probably 80 to 90% of our partners work with us on that basis.
Because you said earlier that you think that the kind of the thought leadership needs to come from the top person. So
yeah,
I'm kind of like putting the two and two together. It's thinking, okay, you could pay to have your company do everything for them, but does that lose a little bit of authenticity as well, or is it not really?
So they're always going to be the person appearing in the content.
Okay.
I can't come into an HR company and talk about HR because I know nothing about it. But what I can do is I can sit on a podcast with you, ask you the right questions about HR, and then I can have my video editor edit it, and then I can have my head of performance marketing run your ads for you and all that kind of stuff. So it's everything other than actually what we talked about before, which is actually appearing in the content.
Yeah. Okay. So what do you think would be the next kind of stage for someone listening to this and they're like, okay, give me one key takeaway. What should I go and do today? What would that be?
Yeah. So I think just have a go at creating your first batch of content. If you haven't done this before, I'd recommend you use that podcast method. We sometimes call these podcast style interviews. Just get someone on your team that you trust and you think will do a good job. Pre-prepare maybe 7 or 8 questions around one of your topics that you have got an opinion on, something that you want to talk about. And then, go ahead and hit record and then publish that content. So that would be my recommended first step. Obviously, if you haven't yet, go back 1 or 2 steps, have a look at product market fit hypothesis, have a look at growth assets. And then the next stage is something we call sales enablement, right? So at the end of phase 3, which is demand building, you're now going to be generating lots of inbound leads. We've got to think about what we're going to do with those inbound leads, which is what comes next in sales enablement.
Do you ever find that people are just nervous about getting it wrong or saying the wrong thing, or I don't know, putting out a really rubbish piece of content? Like, what are the barriers like for the people personally that you come across?
Yeah, that's definitely a barrier. It's like people won't care about what I have to say.
Mm,
Like to your question earlier, like, oh, I just talk about HR.
yeah.
Um, or they might be nervous of, like you said, making a mistake, putting out bad content. I think the way I would think about it is, so firstly, there will be people, if you have a unique perspective and you have something that really resonates with people, there you will find your kind of tribe. And that's one of the great things about the internet, right? And then the other piece is just hit record and see what happens. You don't have to publish it. So
Mm,
you can just record it. There might be one tiny small clip that you use from that whole, you might record for an hour, have one small clip. That's actually fine. And then you'll get better and better at it over time and more comfortable over time. And you'll actually find as you get clearer in your thoughts and communicating your thoughts, that your message gets more and more resonant over time as well. So it's, for me, it's such a skill to be learned as a business leader.
and you said that we stay in this phase until we're kind of generating leads, was it? I guess like that's part of the process, isn't it? If you're improving at generating content, getting clearer and clearer on your message, then when you are ready to then go to the next stage, which was sales enablement,
Yeah.
like that's just part of the process, isn't it? Yeah.
100%. And your message will get refined by pushing it out into the marketplace, because you can come up with a great hypothesis, but you won't know if it's resonating with people until you push it out into the marketplace. And so over time, you'll refine and refine your message, and you'll know, okay, these certain phrases really resonate with people.
Yeah.
This way of talking about this subject, people really click with that. People seem to get that. And it's honestly a night and day difference. You can be saying the same thing and say in a different way, and you can get 10 times the amount of sort of resonance, if that makes sense. And you learn by doing, you learn by creating the content, you learn by having conversations with your clients and potential clients. And over time, it will become, more and more resonant over time.
I can really see how these are like the foundations that your business is built on.
Yeah.
And how many people, it's so easy to probably skip over all of these elements, but really, like, the business is built on this. It's built on the idea. It's built on how you then communicate that idea.
Yeah.
It's built on how you then push that to people,
Right.
and making them not feel like they're having to buy something from you.
100%.
There's so many elements to that.
It is your business.
Yeah.
It's like if you look at any successful business, Apple, for example, the way that they communicate about their products is exceptional, right? They're really good at communicating about their products. Tesla, again, really good at communicating about their products. And they don't really even do any like official marketing, really, do they? But they find ways to communicate. So the companies that do this well, in my opinion, are the ones that win. And especially, like I said, in this day and age, especially the ones that do it in an authentic way. I mean, to give you some more examples as well of companies, and these are recent examples, companies that we worked with recently. I was having a conversation with a partner the other day. They would started to generate their first demos from content. So previously, all of their new business had come from referrals and word of mouth. And they've just started to get these like DMs on LinkedIn of people saying, hey, can we talk about your thing? This is amazing. Someone else, I think the direct phrase was, people are coming to me and begging me for my solution.
It's a good problem.
Right. And this was on her first batch of content.
Yeah.
Again, talking about something which, no offense to her, but like you could argue is a relatively mundane like subject matter. But she's managed to find her tribe and people who are really interested in what she has to say. So yeah, you get this right and it can absolutely transform your business.
Super interesting. Okay, so what's the next stage after traffic and demand building? It was
Sales enablement.
sales enablement.
So now we're getting lots of leads. We need ways of converting those leads into customers in efficient, effective, profitable ways.
Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about next episode.
Talk about it next week.
Looking forward to that. Thanks again for joining me. We'll see you on the next one. I hope that this was useful, insightful, and that you've got something to take away from it.